functions, you know, sometimes that can involve a lot of support, especially whenever you're supporting stuff on your own. You could hire a developer to be able to do something like that, a way to be able to track and assign tasks. You could. Definitely. Or if you need basic functionality, which I'll tell you right now from being on sites, 90% of the time that's exactly what companies need, you could use SharePoint and do it in 5 minutes. First, notice right off the bat that in SharePoint, look, there's already something called a task list created. Now this is a tabular form of data that stores, as you can guess, tasks. But you see, there's going to be certain types of helpers within this tabular form of data, like certain ways you can actually enter in data. Let's see what we're talking about. So I click task over here. Okay, now as I click task, I come over here and I click on add new item. Oh boy. Now, when I click on add new item, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and put a title, and for the title I'm going to put need some work done. So there you go, assigning it to someone. Need some work done. Okay, now the next thing you do is you got this little section called predecessors. This is where you can have tasks that need to be done first before this task. That sort of thing. So tasks that actually, you know, went before. That's automatically built inside of SharePoint. Next, you can give it a priority. So let's just say that you're a micromanager and you give everything the high priority. And come on, we've all dealt with micromanagers like that. I know I have anyway. Hopefully, none of you are micromanagers. Or I don't know. Maybe you are. But you can see the main point over there. So there we put high. Now, what we do is we give it a status. See, status over here is where we can actually choose in progress, completed, deferred, waiting on someone else. So in other words, is this done or whatever else? And as you guys can see, this is a human decision. And yes, guys, one of the most common problems that you'll have with task list is whenever people will start entering in, tasks before they're actually done, especially when people are scared because their projects are behind. You can stop that though with workflows, but out of the box though, out of the box, well, actually workflows do work out of the box, but you have to watch out for that because people can change these options, and they do quite frequently. I've seen plenty of cases where projects were all shown as, you know, in progress, and they were all 80% done, or you name it, or they were completed and they weren't completed. So be very, very careful in that part. So let's just say over here that this is not started. Now we give a percentage complete. This can be gamed. Oh, this can be gamed. You need to set clear approval types of processes for being able to set this as 50 or 60 or 70%. Or it'd be somebody who's the boss who can actually set it based upon their own part, or based upon their own definition or their own feelings. So I'll set this at, like, say 70%. Yep, it wasn't started, but somehow it's 70% done. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, it really doesn't, but you guys get the point. Now I click over here and I can assign it to. So let me just go ahead and browse and click browse. And I could have typed in their login depending upon whatever they had, right? And I'll put Contoso Administrator. That's me. I could have assigned it to anyone I wanted to, but I'm going to assign it to me. So I click over here. Now, normally, could you assign it to anyone that you want to? Depends. If we use what are called workflows to be able to restrict certain things like that, or we use permissions to be able to restrict it. So there's Contoso Administrator, and I click OK. Now I've got Contoso Administrator, and I even put a description. I'm giving myself a task. In real life, you would have put a description that actually represented the task. Finally, a start date right over here, so the date that it started, and a due date, the date that it ends. There we go. Starts on the 20th, ends, and I click Save. That's a task list. That'll be practice number 2 that I'm actually pasting on my blog for people to be able to do within this course. So everyone sees that right there. You'll create a task list, and remember, the reason why, guys, is because a task list is absolutely essential to being able to manage a content management system. Now, I want you guys to think methodology now. In your methodology over here, you've got processes, collection, management, publishing that I talked about earlier. One of the most fundamental things that you have to do is actually establish a task list, because it takes care of so many things. How do you dole out the responsibilities for people and track them? Task lists allow you to do that. And that's extremely important to be able to do in a CMS system. But over here, it's also beneficial for companies who need this sort of functionality. So now we got a task list set up. Okay, we're starting to rock and roll now at this stage, right? We've got task list set up, you name it. Wow, we've actually created form entry list. We're a hero for our organization. Maybe we haven't even ever touched code, but suddenly we're bringing in solutions that are right there out of the box quite quickly. So this looks good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn around and I'm going to actually add another 4 tasks. These 4 tasks will all be on my blog under the SharePoint end user section, so you can use it right over there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Add New Item, and I'm going to add 4 other ones just so you guys can kind of see it. So I'll call this one Complete Project SharePoint is a Go. So there's Complete Project SharePoint is a Go. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to give it a normal sort of priority. And then over here where you guys can actually see the status, I'm going to go with Not Started again. And then over here for the percentage complete, let me just leave it alone, which means basically 0, or I'll just put 0. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign it this time to one of the pre-built-in users on this virtual machine. This will be someone on your domain, or someone who is someone who has permissions to be able to get into SharePoint, someone that you've added in there. So I click over here, and I will go ahead and put, let's say Aaron Harrell. That's one of the users on this machine. Look for it, and there's Aaron, and so I'll click on Aaron, and I'll click OK. There we go. And then what I'll do is I'll even put in the description, complete SharePoint training and implementation. So that makes very sense. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and complete these 2. And basically, let's see, I'll complete SharePoint training and also implement it. And then let me just go ahead and give it a expiration date of 10/31, and let's click Save. There we go. Now Aaron's got a task. Let me add another task too. I'm going to put over here another functionality within SharePoint, host access database online. People love that. People who have access databases, one of the most common issues that they run into is I need to now turn this into some sort of online sort of sharing sort of thing. SharePoint does that in 5 minutes for you, or 6 minutes, or whatever, you name it. It's extremely quick and really popular feature. So then on this status, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a different status called In Progress this time. And I'm going to give it 10% complete. And then I'm going to go ahead and come over here, and I'm going to go ahead and assign it to Eric Gruber. Now what I'm doing is I'm assigning tasks, so I'm some sort of boss who's got the authority to be able to do this. Hint, hint, hint. There we go, and there's Eric Gruber, and I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to click over here. And I'm going to go over here, and I'll say it started in August, or it started in August, and I want it to go ahead and end in, I don't know, October the 20th. You guys get the point, and I'll click Save. Oh, whoops, sorry, I forgot. Let me add a description real quick that I put inside my guide. This is slightly different than in my guide, which has different dates, but it's the exact same steps, and you can use the steps in the guide and you'll be just fine. Okay, now I'm going to come over here, or inside my free course anyway. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click Add New Item right over there. And now what I'm going to put over here is Create Dynamic Forms with SharePoint. Oh yes, big functionality within SharePoint is the ability to be able to create data entry sorts of interfaces that do everything. InfoPath is magic. Big time magic. So I click over there on Create the Data Form Entry. And now what I'm going to do over here is our data forms with SharePoint. I'm going to come back and I'm going to assign something this time to, whoops, let me start over here. Let me first change this project status to waiting on someone else so we know what's going on. I'll give it 5% complete. And I'll go ahead and assign it this time, coming over here, to Eric Grubels. Or Eric Goobles. There we go. And that's somebody within our organization. I click OK. Actually, it's some sample person on the Microsoft Information machine, but you get the point. And let me just put over here, learn how SharePoint enhances InfoPath. There we go. Now I'm going to come down over here, and I'll give it, I don't know, 10/20th, make it 11/20th. And again, for those of you who are going to be doing the custom labs that I put up for free, you can use any date you want to for this particular exercise. The 2-hour course will still work. Okay, now I'm going to click Add New Item. And I'm going to add one last one, and you guys have now gotten the point over here. And I'm going to call this Use SharePoint, or Use SP, which means SharePoint, to create websites that previously took developers several weeks to create, if not longer. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I'll just put, instead I'll change this, I'm sorry, let me change this, and let me just put in learn to build powerful websites. There we go over there. And then normal, and then priority over here. Let's change the priority over here to low, although it's very high for many people. Very common thing that I'll be asked to do is build a website for someone in SharePoint. Love to do it because it's quick and easy. Come back over here now, and I'll change this to in progress. Then I'll come back over here in the assign to, right? And I'll come over here and I'll click on Aaron. Let's give it back to Aaron Harrell. So Aaron Harrell now needs to learn how to become a SharePoint web developer, or at least web builder. Very commonly done with business people, although technical people can do it too. And I'll put use SP now to create websites that previously took developers several weeks to create. And I will go ahead and give this 10/20th, and I'll give this, you know, what it normally would take to train someone would be 2 days. 10/22 there. And then they're absolutely amazed, and they're rocking websites left and right. Click Save. Wow, that was it for a task list. That's actually how to use the task list. So what did we just learn in this one? We just learned how to use list. We just learned also, too, that there's something called permissions, although we haven't really used them too much at this stage. We just looked at them and saw them. We saw site settings where we could go in and actually use it to create a couple of things. And we also understood the very important but yet thing that tends to confuse people between list and libraries. All they are is tabular forms of data that display through the browser. Now, truth be told, they link back to a database. But they display as tables unless we change it to be otherwise, which we can change to display if we want to. But you guys saw the columns, you saw the rows, you saw all that sorts of stuff in there. You saw how to do data entry. So some of you who are brand new could probably go on Office 365 and register, if you wanted to, for example, and walk right back to your organization and create a list and show them to where you've given them the ability now to be able to store data within within, you know, be able to take data entered in from the web and store it within a database. Some of you will be able to do that right after this tutorial. Quite amazing. I've never been able to teach that until SharePoint came out, where I could take people and essentially in 5 minutes teach them that. But that's extremely, extremely significant. Okay, end of this one over here. We'll start again on the very next on the very next section of our end user tutorial in just a little bit.